first time ever.
Hear you loud and clearly.
And it was going place.
That stuff's great.
But the game is not a roguelike.
Boomer shooter.
Bang.
Hello, this is John St. John, and you're listening to KEEP in the Keep, bringing you all the hits from the finest in the world of gaming and entertainment. Now sit back and relax as the drowned god Cthulhu lulls your mind with the tastiest talk in town.
Welcome to another chapter of In the Keep podcast. I'm your very own prophet of the drowned god, the Motherlode. The Keep is a collective of gaming enthusiasts compelled by the drowned god Cthulhu to frag and jib one another into oblivion for all eternity. Okay, so go ahead and introduce yourself.
So I'm Sam Prebble. Some of you may know me as Waterholic. I am the creative director behind Turbo Overkill, which is a up and coming first-person shooter for PC. Actually, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say what platforms it's for at the moment. But yeah, it's definitely going to be on PC.
I'm super fucking stoked to have you back on the show, man. Like, it's been a long time. Like, I don't even remember what episode number it was, but it was fairly early on, like when I was just getting started. And you were on for Total Chaos at that point, and I didn't have any idea what we were going to be getting into from then to now. So, can you just kind of give us the short idea of what Turbo Overkill is?
Yeah, so I started the project back in 2019, and I set out to make, I suppose, a game of my dreams. I know that sounds cliche, but I've been making games for quite a long time, and for some reason, I never got around to making an ultra-violent first-person shooter, which is the kind of game I want to play. So I set out, just no plan at all, just make whatever. I just went ahead and made whatever I thought was fun. I mean, even the idea of having so basically in Turbo, you play as a guy, a cyborg who has a leg for a chainsaw, and it's set in
a chainsaw for a leg.
Chainsaw for a leg, yeah.
That would be so fucking funny, though.
A leg for. Oh shit. Yeah. So you play as a cyborg who has a chainsaw for a leg, and it's set in a cyberpunk dystopian where a computer virus has started wreaking havoc and taking over the citizens or the other cyborgs that live in the city that you inhabit. Originally, yeah, I started back on the project in 2019, and I just cobbled together, anything I thought that was fun. And about 2 or 3 months later, I had a basic prototype, and I just went ahead from there.
I mean, it's actually fucking awesome. Like, I got the chance to play like a very, very early build, which you guys made me keep secret, which was hard. I don't even know if I'm supposed to say that now. I guess it's okay.
That's fine.
But, I mean, I had played your earlier stuff. I loved Total Chaos, and we talked ad nauseum about it. I have to be honest, like, you were at that point in time, people would be like, "Who's your favorite guest?" And they're probably expecting like one of these people that everybody knows about. And I would always say like, I mean, it was either Locktar or Waterholic. These are the two people that I've interviewed that I was just like so inspired by. And getting back to Total Chaos here, or not? Fuck, I'm gonna do this all night long. Don't worry. Getting back to Turbo Overkill here, I immediately upon playing it, I was like, this is going to be fucking awesome. This is going to be like game changing. And then Ultra Kill kind of came out at the same time, or kind of came into the public face around the same time that I saw this game for the first time. And this was like the mark of what I consider kind of a new era in boomer shooters. And it went two different ways. And we had the kind of MSIM resurgence. And then we also had this sort of more still not high fidelity. I mean, these are still super, retro looking games. But we moved from the Dooms and the Quakes into the more PlayStation 1 era, like more dynamic movement, a little bit more Devil May Cry. And what made you kind of decide that these are the things that I'm going to do to add on to it? Because it would have been really easy to just, I mean, you're already the fucking top notch head honcho at making Doom shit. So it feels like it would have been easy to just make a boomer shooter really quick and painlessly, but you didn't.
Yeah.
As always, went above and beyond.
Yeah. So, well, first of all, I'm honored that, I'm one of your top guests. I mean, this is definitely one of the best podcasts I've ever done. So, but with, when I start
To be determined.
when I started the project, it originally was just going to be another. I put all these rules in place, these arbitrary rules, where I would say I'm going to make a boomer shooter. It's going to have this many weapons, this many episodes. It's going to be, try and stay as close to the Doom formula as much as I could. And I ended up getting an episode out of it, like a full 8 or 9 levels as a demo. And when I played it, I was like, this doesn't really do a lot to stand out from other games out there, which are doing, bloody amazing things. And I felt like if I didn't go back to the drawing board and, rethink a few mechanics, to try and make Turbo Overkill its own game rather than trying to make it fit a certain rule set to be a boomer shooter. I felt if I didn't do that, I was just going to get buried pretty quick. So I spent most of last year going back and just refining a lot of the gameplay mechanics and trying to make it a bit more, trying to make it have more of its own identity, but at the same time not stray too far from being what inspired it in the first place, which is a retro boomer shooter.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we're in a weird kind of moment where, who would have ever thought that the market for boomer shooters would be oversaturated? Like if you asked 3 years ago, I was clamoring, trying to find more games like this. And now it's like, I'm getting hit left and right all the time. It's like dodging meteors in Star Wars or something.
Yeah, there's so many coming out. Especially, like seeing last year during Realms Deep, how many boomer shooters were coming up. It's going to be a good time, I think, coming up for boomer shooters.
It's like, it's gotten to a point now where you can't just like put one out and, say, like Dusk or whatever, and then everybody's just going to go fucking crazy. I mean, there's definitely still your E1N1 magazine, Zach Murphys of the world, who are going to play every single game like this because they just can't get enough. But, ultimately there's a market and people are going to decide, okay, well, that's worth my time. That's not worth my time. What's worth my money? All that sort of thing. And, you've got to stand out. You got to be different, and your game is truly, truly fucking different, man. It's just, there's nothing else like it at all. I mean, the closest comparison you could make would be something like Ultra Kill, but even then, they're still so different and so special. Each of them has their own graphic style, and for Turbo Overkill in particular, you really did a number on making the environment feel very real and just totally not something you see anymore. And I'm sure you can kind of elaborate on what your inspirations were artistically. But I mean, the first thing I think that you and I talked about when you sent me the picture of the TV head, and I was like, is this from Saga? And then you were like, no, I've never even seen that before. But because Saga was a comic book that I really liked when I was a teenager.
Yeah. I only just discovered recently there is a comic book series about a guy who has like all 4 of his limbs are chainsaws and he has a head for a chainsaw. Like I never noticed that existed until recently. Funny thing with the visual style of the game, originally I was trying to, going back to trying to keep it more close to Doom. Like I originally said I don't want any crazy lighting effects. I don't want, real-time reflections or any of that. I want to keep it flat lit. Has to, be pixelated. It has to look like something from the 90s. But, it's really hard to do a rainy cyberpunk environment without, reflections on the ground. Like, that was one of the things that drove me to stray a bit further from the source material and make it look like its own thing. Inspirations like Blade Runner is probably one of the biggest, the most obvious visual inspirations for it.
Yeah, I was talking to Revel the other day, who's making Sprawl, and we really got into the weeds with what makes cyberpunk, and there's actually, from his point of view, and I think he's right, very different ways you could go about it, because there is that sort of Blade Runner aesthetic, and then I think his game is more like Ghost in a Shell, kind of that Japanese anime Akira sort of thing. I could definitely see the Blade Runner in Turbo Overkill so far, but you also have like this wacky, graffiti art, like it's like skateboard-esque, and it just really, it gives me, Tony Hawk vibes or whatever. Like that's kind of, it's the era of gaming that I think this kind of game recaptures anyway. It feels like, you and I are both showing our age a bit, I guess. But it does feel like a 90s kid, like an early 2000s kid coming up in that era sort of game.
Yeah, there's a bit of I unintentionally put a bit of Saturday morning cartoon in there just because I wanted something to offset the extreme graphic violence and try and make it a bit more comical. Because I didn't want to do, if I was going to make something really gory, I didn't want it to be serious. It had to be, silly looking characters, really vibrant colors, like something that looks like sort of like edges along the border of being a cartoon and being realistic. Yeah, it was very unintentional, but I knew it was actually, so it does look quite comical, not only because like I wanted it to look a bit, distance itself from being too violent, but also like a few of those principles from like the earlier Dooms is like, you look at a lot of the enemies from the first Doom, and they are quite colorful themselves, and it actually does help them stand out from the environment quite a bit. So like, when you see an enemy, you know what you're shooting at pretty quick.
It's almost like a surrealist kind of thing. None of this stuff makes any fucking sense. It's just, you have to kind of create your own logic, and I think that's another thing that kind of harkens back to that time in gaming, because now people, even Doom, people are starting to like act like they need to prod and probe the logic. I even had the visceral reaction of like, why the fuck am I like swinging on these weird golden pull-up bars that the demons from hell just happen to have sitting around for Doom God to attack? And I get that, because I think that the further we go graphically, the more realistic something looks, then the more realistic naturally, for some reason, people want it to feel. But games of the time that we both harken back to, I think that you didn't even expect that. You just expected it to somehow make its own internal sense, and then you would just learn that and then go forward with it. And you're kind of right in that middle ground where, I expect a gun to shoot an enemy and blow it up, but I don't need it to be like if I shoot a rocket at this thing, it should explode because that's what rockets do. It's like, it takes a little bit. It takes time. There's an internal logic to how you're supposed to fight with these enemies. And in your case, you got a guy like, grinding around on the ground with a chainsaw leg and stuff. And then you can do these wacky slides and really play with the physics. And that's one of the coolest parts of this whole thing.
Yeah, I definitely wanted to. It was really important for me to make sure that, like, anything that goes in the game has to be fun. And like, if I have to go over the top with the gore, or if I have to go over the top with the visual effects to add to that, then I'm happy to do that, even if it's to an unrealistic extent. Like, there's a funny thing where if you're chainsaw sliding on the ground and you look down at your torso, like, you can actually do a full 360-degree turn. And realistically, any human cannot do that. But then I'm kind of like just saying, well, he's a cyborg, so maybe he has like a robotic pelvis, so he can kind of get away with doing like full 360-degree turns while sliding in one direction.
Dude, I wish I had a robotic pelvis. My life would be far, far happier. I think everybody dreams of having a robotic pelvis.
Relationship goals.
No, it is weird, but I think that's why it's at least why I play video games. I don't want to be in a fucking simulator. I mean, I know that that's a huge thing. People like that, but even with, shooting games, I don't particularly gravitate towards, military simulators or anything that feels super realistic, because I'm trying to escape the real world. I'm trying to do stuff that I couldn't do. And that's so fun. Even Dusk had that, in Dusk World, people would really exploit it where you could do the full 360 rotation, which makes no fucking sense, but it was really cool.
Yeah.
And then you end up with these awesome videos with Brondo, who had mastered the art of standing upside down and killing people, or doing he would do like a 180 shot, but he would actually do it by going on the y-axis instead of turning around left and right.
Yeah, I'll definitely, any day I would take something that's more fun over realism. That's for sure.
I meant Z-axis. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about.
It depends what engine you're talking about, because Unity... Dusk is Unity too, so... uncapped Y-axis rotation. I think that's what...
All right, well, I was right by accident. Cool.
I think Z-axis will be like if you were to roll the camera on its side. Actually, I can't remember. I don't understand Quitonians, and I probably shouldn't pretend to understand them.
I'm no mathematician, so we'll just leave it at that.
I'm pretty sure the person who invented Quitonians doesn't know how it works. It's I'm probably not even saying it right, to be honest.
But, that's one of the many things that you can kind of play with and experiment with and find new ways to make shooters different and fun. And you've really gone the extra mile, because like I said earlier, you don't have to. You didn't have to. You could have just made a really visceral, badass looking. I mean, your game already looks better than most other things in this particular market. It's got its own unique art style. Like, playing around too much with the physics is not a requirement, but when you do it, I think that's what makes it go from, being a game that sells a bit, to something that people go fucking ape shit over. Like, this is amazing. And I think that that's going to be the case when you finally hit the market with this thing. What are you like? Because you came public with it early on, and then you went dark for a bit, and then you've recently kind of come back into the limelight, to show off the game. And I get that you had to go into the editing cave and figure some shit out, but yeah, there appears to be no strategy at hand for marketing.
Yeah, it's kind of I didn't really go in with a plan on how I was going to market this. Like at first, I think it was way back in 2018. It might have been 2018. Yeah, I put out a couple of videos on Twitter. And then, there wasn't really much to report on back then. I put my head down and worked on a build for the game, like what I think would be a good early access slice, something that is basically one of 3 episodes. Because, I was trying to follow the Doom formula from the first game, where you have 3 episodes and you put the first one out as shareware. But by the time I put that together and I played it, it just didn't feel that good. And it wasn't what I imagined it being. So I basically, I put my head down for another year. I released the odd clip here and there. But I didn't feel that I wanted to show it off until I knew I was heading in the right direction, and I knew what I had was what I wanted to be close to what the final game is. And that's when I started, putting a few videos out every now and then at the beginning of this year, and then eventually, just putting out a full gameplay video. It's been something I've wanted to do for so long, but I just haven't felt like the game was ready to show people. And now I feel that it's starting to, I put the video out. I wasn't expecting the reaction that it got. It's been really humbling to see that it's resonated with a lot of people. Well, a lot more people than I could ever imagine.
You put out the one teaser, with the sort of Evil Dead, groovy shit at the end of it.
Yeah.
And then
It's funny.
you got to like 1,000 Twitter followers in no time. It was crazy.
It's funny. I actually never watched I never watched Evil Dead. I never watched Ash vs. Evil Dead or any of that stuff until like the beginning of last year. And after I watched the series, I was like, holy shit, this will make a really cool trailer. Like, just copying that exact scene from Evil Dead 2 where he gets a shotgun on his arm and he says groovy. Sorry, not the shotgun, the chainsaw on his arm. I'm getting old.
No, actually, we do like movie nights in the Keep because everybody's all fucking. Well, we're not hanging out in real life. Let's watch movies together in Discord. And we watched The Evil Dead the other day because I had a few friends who had just literally never seen it, and I was taken aback. I'm like, how could you have gone this long?
Yeah, I even told myself the same thing. Like they seem like something I would have been really into 10 years ago, and I don't know why I didn't watch it until now.
I mean, to me, they're like prolific films. I absolutely love all three of them, and I like the TV show as well. They're just so cool. Bruce Campbell, I mean, hats off to him, the greatest actor of all time.
It's a national treasure.
He's a world treasure. Like when the aliens land, I think we should probably send Bruce Campbell to meet them. I couldn't think of a better envoy for Earth. That is interesting. So you like literally copy that scene, but it just hit so hard, and it was a good moment to kind of show off the hook of the game, which is that you're this weird cyborg robot guy with chainsaw leg, and people seem to have really fucking just like jumped right on that bandwagon. Like, they didn't have any other context. It's just like, here's a video, it's a game, it might be called something, and then you left us hanging for fucking forever, man. I've been, you and I have been like kind of talking back and forth in the background, but I've still just been like chomping at the bit. Like, when am I going to get to fucking talk about this?
Yeah, I'm glad we can now talk about it. I've been wanting to show you guys this for so long, so it's been quite an honor. And
I mean, how many hours are you pulling here? Because you have your day job as well, and then you're coming home and making this, if I understand correctly, pretty much solo, like doing this whole thing.
For the most part, like when I started out, I was solo, and I didn't have a job back when I started it, and I would spend most of my day just working on the game. I'll just it's probably about half of my day every day working on the game. It was only by the end of 2019 I kind of ran out of money and I had to get another job. So since then I've been doing it on the side after hours. But yeah, last year I had Mike come on board, who's like a really super talented musician. You guys would know him as Gribblesnap. And so right now it's just him and I working on this thing.
I mean, so you're not doing the music, but you're doing literally the entire other section of what it is to make a game, which is most of it.
Yeah, okay. all the programming, all the level design, all the art. Which, I mean, the good thing about the art is being pixelated. I can get away with so much inconsistency in the artwork I put out. But at the same time, it is a really hard thing to get right. Like, I mean, the problem I had at the beginning was I put so much art in the game and I'd have a pixelation filter over it that most of the time I'd play it, I wouldn't be able to tell what was going on because it was just basically a mess of pixels. So I say it's easy, but it actually hasn't been easy because I've had to go back and refine stuff so much just to make it more, give it more visual clarity so people know what's happening when they're zipping around on, with the chainsaw leg. But yeah, it's just been Mike and I at the moment working on this.
It sounds like too much work.
I lose track of how much time I spend on it.
Are you a bit of a control freak though? Like everything kind of, would you be disappointed if you were trying to have a different artist or whatever that couldn't fully capture your vision?
I mean, yeah, when I'm working on my own stuff, I turn into quite a perfectionist. But whenever I see somebody else put something in, I'm like, they give me a demo and I'm like, yeah, this is freaking amazing. Stick it in. And they're like, this isn't the final artwork. I'm like, it doesn't matter. It's good enough. I mean, when it's my work, I get pretty like antsy about it, but when it's other people's stuff, it's usually I'm pretty easy to impress most of the time.
It is funny. Like I talk to lots of people like you, crazy creative types, and there's something that's far more motivating about when it's your thing and it's your name on it, and you're really just invested in what it's going to be. It's kind of like owning your own business. I mean, it actually will be at some point when you start selling this thing, but there's a lot more incentive to work when you feel like you depend on it. And if you're part of a team, there's nothing wrong with being part of a team, but there's always the chance that someone's not, fully wholeheartedly into it because, it's not their vision. They're just, a hired gun. And I can kind of relate. In the Keep is very much like my baby, and like I tried to have this creative vision of what it was going to be and everything, but then I got to a point where it was too big and I can't handle it on my own. And luckily, everybody who helps out are 100% all in. People who were into it before they had any reason to be into it. So.
Yeah, it's I totally agree. It is hard to. I had the same problem on Total Chaos. There were a lot of people that would come and go quite a bit. I mean, yeah, it is hard to find the incentive when it's not, your baby. Which is why, whenever I work with people in that situation, I'm always quite open to letting them have their own interpretation of what something should be, rather than me, micromanaging them and telling them how stuff should be done. Like with the music Gribblesnap's done, like everything he's given me, I just, I love it. It sounds amazing. I don't want to go back and tell him to change something he's happy with just to, because I am getting too precious about it. So yeah, it's been a hard thing to learn. And I did learn a lot over the course of Total Chaos that it's definitely helped me out with this project.
I don't really suffer from that problem. Like I'm very comfortable with just recognizing people's talents and saying like, you do what you do best. And then that almost gets to a point where it's like, they need more guidance or they want more guidance. And I'm just like, nah, just go fucking crazy. I don't care. I trust you. I respect that you're good at what you do. And I'm a musician, but I'm not making music for games. So like, I'm not going to tell someone how it ought to be because they're the expert and I'm not. I do the same thing when I go get my haircut. Like they'll be like, what haircut do you want? I'm just like, I don't know, go fucking nuts. Like just make me look good in your opinion.
My head's your canvas.
I'm just like, you're a professional, do your fucking job.
You can't tell that to people though when you're not paying them. That's the only thing.
That's true.
Yeah.
I'm not saying like do your fucking job, like get to work, asshole. I'm saying like,
yeah.
Who am I to tell you how to do it? Just I could sit here and micromanage and try to act like I know what I'm talking about, but at the end of the day, I don't know much more about hair terminology than like a fade, or a flat top, and I don't want either of those.
I can't even visualize the numbers. They say it's like, oh, do you want a 4? And I'm like, I think it's this long. Sure. Okay.
A little off the top, man. A little off the top.
Yeah. I just go in and say, tidy it up. Whatever that means.
Yeah. I don't know. I just find it very difficult to tell someone how to do their art. I don't like it when people do that to me, right? When I'm doing my job and someone stands over my shoulder meticulously pulling it apart. Like, granted, I do want, constructive criticism. I think everybody should want that. I just don't want someone to act like they know better than me how I should do what I do.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Unless they're, a senior person in that particular position, whatever that happens to be. That could mean anything.
Yeah, it is. I find it's important to not address everything, but definitely take it on board, because I've been in situations where I would silo myself. I'd isolate myself on a single piece of work, and I'll be working on it for so long that I wouldn't know. Even I wouldn't know if it's good or bad until I actually show it to someone.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you can't really always take on opinions or advice from other people. Like, you can keep it in the back of your mind, but I mean, at the end of the day, you can't please everyone. I mean, art is a very subjective thing, and it's in my experience, I find it very random on what I make, if it hits or if it doesn't hit. Like, I could work really hard on something I'm really happy about and proud about, and then I show it to people, and like, nobody gives a shit about it. They give a shit about this thing that I spent 5 minutes on in the corner.
I mean, but regardless, like, you just got to find your people, right? Like, there's got to be a certain extent to just decide, I'm going to commit to this particular thing, and then seek out the people who are into it. I mean, if you were just take Turbo Overkill, to a group of people who are very much into like super realistic graphics, and they were just like, have you considered doing like, far better graphics? Like, they're missing the point. That's not your audience of people you want to listen to, or like who have anything to really contribute necessarily to what you're attempting to do.
Yeah, no, you're totally right.
Yeah.
Which is why, like, I've been fortunate. Like, Mike is quite into the whole. Well, I haven't actually asked him, but I'm pretty sure he's quite into the whole, indie retro shooter thing. So,
but yeah, I'm actually kind of bewildered by people who work together on things that for a long time and like don't know much about each other. Like, that it never even comes up to like get to know very simple details. Like, I don't know if he even likes this kind of game. I had that experience when Call of Ragnar guys first came on the show, and the sound design guy and the main developer, this is Ben and Damian, had never seen each other before. Like, they've been working together for like a few years and have never gotten on a webcam and just said like, hey, like, this is me, and like, let's just spend a day hanging out instead of doing the thing.
Yeah, there's actually
I make a point to do that with everyone if I can.
There's a guy in the Doom community, the Mr. Cat. He was one of the he coded the whole inventory system in the mod and did a few other bits and bobs, mostly on the code side, but he lives in the same city as me, and I haven't met him yet. Like, I keep telling him, hey, we should go out for a beer, but it hasn't happened yet. So I think
I was talking to him about this exact same subject. Like, he's just like, yeah, I know Sam kind of, but we never met, but we live in the same town. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I would be all over that.
Yeah, I think I'll ping him this weekend, get a drink. Make it happen this time.
Patch me in on the phone. Like, just have me like on one of those little like trolley iPod things, or iPad things.
Straight out of Big Bang Theory.
Yeah, Mr. Cat's awesome, dude. He's so talented.
Yeah, he's the stuff he does it's pretty breathtaking, especially his level design. Some of the worlds he's made is just fucking crazy. I
mean, fucking Age of Hell is gonna wreck everybody's expectation of what can be done with the total conversion for Doom.
It's been definitely one of the most impressive things I've seen come out of it.
I mean, it's a weird time because you broke down the barrier. Essentially, you and Sergeant Mark both really, in two very different ways, kind of broke everybody's minds about like, what can this engine do and be, and what can be created, and what kinds of different things can we explore. And now I think a lot of the foundation that you guys laid down, regardless of how anybody feels about either one of you or your mods, it took a little while, but here we are, and some of the most impressive looking games maybe ever are being made in the Doom engine in 2021. It's so cool. Yeah, it's something I did not expect to see, was how many indie games are coming, that are coming up that have been made in the Doom engine. And there's there was one I was looking up, I can't remember the name now. There was one I saw recently on Twitter, which,
was like
Suleiko?
I think it was. It was like it's very cyberpunk sci-fi.
I'm literally just naming off like what's the most impressive looking Doom mod right now.
It was fully voice acted. It had subtitles and I like
colorful.
Yeah, I looked at it. And I was like, "There's no way." It looks like Fear, basically like a Doom like Fear game. But I was looking at it and this doesn't look like the Doom engine. And the amount of work that has gone into making this is amazing. Like, I'm always surprised by the longevity of the Doom community and how popular it still is today. It always blows my mind.
Suleiko is like a particularly fantastic example of, and again, I'm not trying to blow smoke up your ass, but you, to me, were the one who broke this barrier of like, I can show you this game, and if I don't tell you it's Doom, you would never, ever know, right? And Suleiko is kind of in that same wheelhouse where like this doesn't look anything like anything I've ever seen in Doom before, which is so cool. I mean, it's a testament to, hey, this engine is still really cool and viable, and it's GZ Doom at least is being constantly maintained and updated. It's so impressive. But you're too big for Doom now. You're getting off into the Unity world, and we'll see where you end up. Because you do like UE4 stuff as well, like kind of in your job.
So my job is mostly Unreal Engine, and at my last job too, I was using it. I mainly stick to Unity because I prefer the programming language and how quick you can get stuff made up. But I'd always pick Unreal over, if I wanted to make something really big and graphically impressive, like I would probably do it in the Unreal Engine if I had more money and I had a bigger team, of course.
Yeah, I mean, there's useful things about everything. It's all a matter of scope and what you prefer and how your workflow works. I'm one of these people, like, I will purposefully not learn a new thing just because, like, well, I already know how to use it.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to dramatically slow down my workflow if I have to learn something. And people will be like, oh, dude, you got to switch to DaVinci, man. Like, your current video editing software is just not the best thing. And I'm just like, yeah, but I know how to use it.
I'm the same. I mean, even with Total Chaos, there were new methods to do, like, there was a new scripting language that came out, and I was like, I'm already halfway through programming this thing. I'm too scared to learn the new thing. I'll just stick to the old programming language instead of moving to, because it's all Z script now, and it's so much more flexible than what used to be there, which was I can't remember the name of it now. It's been that long since I've touched it, but yeah, I'm very much the same. I'll always stick to the tried and tested method rather than trying something that is probably 3 times quicker.
Yeah, it's hard to kind of, I try to be as open-minded as I possibly can. If somebody really, that I trust really feels strongly about something, I will give it a shot, but I got to be efficient. And I think that's what it really comes down to, is like, do the most efficient thing you can. The quickest route from point A to point B is usually my method. Which is, and to be analogous about it, you say that you're like, I'm going to do what I know, and stick to my guns and take that tried and true method. But you always end up taking that tried and true method and turning it into something that's just like, whoa, what the fuck? You take the method of making a boomer shooter, and then you've turned it into Total Chaos. And then you turned it again into Turbo Overkill. And well, I guess Total Chaos really can be categorized as a boomer shooter, but whatever. You took that engine and made it a survival horror game.
Yeah. I mean, you probably could somehow play Total Chaos as a boomer shooter. Somehow.
It would be very not fun. It might be rewarding if you can do it.
Yeah. So it's been so long since I've played it. Actually, I just opened it up last week to put in a bug fix, and I opened up all the code, and it's like I don't recognize any of this anymore. It's kind of sad. I don't think I'd ever go back to doing Doom mods again. As much as I love making them, it's just I don't. There's already I feel like it's already a new generation of modders who can do way better than what anything I could do now. So I feel I'll stick to Unity for the time being.
Maybe one day, 20 years from now, when you're sitting in your mansion or on your yacht and you're just like, I want to I have some free time. I'm going to revisit that. I tried to talk Tim Willits into it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. When he was on for Realms Deep last year, I brought up like, hey, what, I know that you're on to bigger and better things and all that, but would you ever even consider just like sitting down and banging out a new, level or a new pack of levels? Like, wouldn't that be fucking awesome? And it wouldn't, but the trouble with that is that Romero already did that. And I don't think Tim Willits is in any way interested in being compared any more than he has to be.
I still need to play Romero's new maps.
Sigil, they're cool. I like it. It's one of those things where it's really cool because, the granddaddy of them all has returned and all that sort of thing. And it's visually very interesting. And of course the music is fantastic because it's Jimmy. And that's all fine and dandy. But as you said, since the last time he published anything in Doom, people have picked it up and gone way above and beyond with it. And so if you're comparing Sigil to other things that are built on this, with a consistency for 25, 30 years or whatever, it's very hard to stand up to the test of time. But if you were to, take me back to right after Doom released and Sigil were actually the next episode, which canonically, I guess it's supposed to be, then it would have been like, whoa, fuck, come all over your face.
I actually might have some more time. I might have another an extra 15 minutes.
Well, it's up to you, man. Do it however you want. I'm perfectly happy. We could do 42 minutes or we could do 4.5 hours and it wouldn't make any difference to me.
Man,
time in the world for
if I had the time, I'd definitely do 4.5 hours. But I don't want to keep you. I don't want to keep you up too late. Actually, no, wait. So
I just woke up.
You just woke up. Yeah, that's kind of. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I actually have a bunch of unreleased maps I want to put out, but I know that it's probably not worth putting them out because I think I like them, but there's already people that do way better stuff than me.
Yeah, sure. There's no problem. It's not an issue, right? Like you're doing something else now, and if you decided like, I really got to stick to my calling and or whatever, like there's nothing wrong with doing that and going in a different path and experimenting with something new. And you were never going to, up until, maybe the past couple of years, I would have probably said, well, you're never going to make any money as a Doom modder anyway. So you might as well like try something else. But that you cut your teeth like that. And now you're just punching in a whole different weight class. And that's what's really cool. Because even now with all of these cool games on the market that are built in Doom, and it's not really an expectation that these are going to be mind-blowingly badass, like awesome game changers in the industry. It's just going to be really cool for the community of people who are into this kind of Doom and boomer shooter world. There's tiers to that. I haven't really thought it through enough to go too deep on that, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the more the merrier. I mean, I don't think I'm ever going to get sick of boomer shooters. I think they are still as relevant as they were, 20 years ago. 25 years ago. I got to get my math right. I can't say 30 years because I'm pretty sure there weren't any boomer shooters 30 years ago.
I think they're arguably more relevant now than they were then. Not at the time, these were, AAA cutting edge games and everybody was playing them. I would have to like really dig into the numbers here to fully understand it. But I think that nowadays you have the people who played them back then returning to it. And you also have a whole new generation of people who are really interested in it. I mean, me included. I was a baby when in 1995 I was just born.
I think the thing that I love most about them is it just cuts the bullshit. Like, it gets straight into the action. It's the gameplay is focused around the core essence of what the game is. It's not, it's not surrounded by a bunch of extra mechanics that probably don't have to be there. It's just a game and shooting monsters. And if it feels amazing, then that's probably all you need. It's definitely all I need.
There's a place for all of it. I try to get out of my comfort zone. I was just testing out the early access for this game called It Stares Back, which is it's a RTS RPG, and I've never ever touched an RTS before. Until this past couple of weeks, I never played StarCraft. I have no idea how the mechanics work, and I tried one game that I don't think I'm supposed to talk about yet, and then I was like, okay, well, I'm going to try this It Stares Back game and kind of go into it. And after a bit, it was a learning curve, but after maybe 30 minutes or so, I got pretty comfortable, and I'm happy to try something different. And I do think there's a place for storytelling, and there's a place for just weird, crazy mechanics and stuff. You got to do experiments. It's like evolution, and we'll decide, we'll see what stands the test of time. But I also think that kind of makes me a little bit more, I feel like if I'm going to be doing all this commentary on games, I should be broadening my horizons from just like sticking straight to like, I'm only going to play one kind of game. Because honestly, like, I'm not saying I've gotten bored with boomer shooters, but it is a bit trying when I play, I'm not always playing like the next best thing. I'm playing a lot of different stuff that will, some of it's going to stick and some of it's not. And that can be not very rewarding. That can be like, so, I mean, to be honest, as a consumer, I want the best of the best. Like,
yeah.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. It is good to stretch out and try new things. Like, I basically used to play nothing but shooters, but about 5 years ago, I was like, okay, I need to stretch out and try something different, because I played everything. So I think, like, I played Dark Souls for the first time, something I completely didn't think I would get into. It's a complete polar opposite of anything I was interested in, but it's, especially the first Dark Souls is one of my favorite games, and definitely something that helped inspire me to, I tried injecting some of that into Total Chaos, with the world design and the melee combat. I really should probably stretch out more and try new things. Actually, I played Factorio recently. That it's a crazy game.
It's so cool because when you get that different perspective, like if I can appreciate a little bit more about what these other genres that people feel really passionate about, like a great example would be Dark Souls, right? Like there's so many shooters that are coming out that, I asked the people like, well, what are the inspirations? And they hugely disproportionate amount would be like, yeah, it's very Dark Souls influence. And I didn't really fully understand that. And finally, Vince Steele, he's a YouTube reviewer. He hit me up with it. He's just like literally bought it for me. He's like, you have to play this. Like you're not going to understand until you do. And now that I have a whole different perspective on like what Scumhead means when he says vomitorium is, inspired by Souls or whatever. So it's, I think it's important to kind of not be totally tunnel vision.
Yeah, definitely.
But, so this is a good transition, I guess. Like what are the things that sort of really influenced your ideas and methods for creating Turbo Overkill?
It's hard to say, really. I mean, there's the Doom influences, but it's hard to say, really. I mean, I kind of just
let it happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's something I've always wanted to do, and
Well, the sliding the mechanics and
actually,
the movement style was that based on anything?
Well, yeah, funnily enough, I was playing a lot of Titanfall 2 at the time. Sorry, not Titanfall. I was playing a lot of Apex Legends, and I was like, okay, the sliding in this is, mechanically it just feels so good to slide around. I was like, okay, what if I just pinch that and put some chainsaws on there? And that was originally how that mechanic started. Even something like the wall running, basically from Titanfall 2. It was basically kind of started out where I would start making a shooter, and I was like, okay, I like this mechanic from this game. I'll put it in, try and do my own spin on it. So it's a lot of mostly just shooter influences mashed together. It's not a very good answer, is it?
It's fine. I'll just kind of like keep digging until I get what I want out of you. Did you have trouble because you would come up with these awesome ideas like, oh, I'd like to see what that looks like in this game and just implement it? Did you have trouble like balancing it to make it feel appropriate?
Yeah, usually the first implementation of anything I do is quite messy. And I'd just spend, I'd start working on it in a day, and I'll be like, okay, how does it feel if I, stick a grapple hook in the game? And I'll spend a good 2 or 3 hours getting the grapple hook in the game, and then I'll test it, and I'll be like, okay, is this a mechanic that's worth pursuing? And if it is, then I expect there's going to be a lot of refinement that's going to be happening. Like the movement mechanics in Turbo, so I got like a player movement and a player mouse look script that I've just been, every day I would go in and I'll tweak the numbers slightly because something doesn't feel right. And there's just been so much iteration on like a feature, and like I will keep iterating until it feels right. And if I feel it's feeling pretty good now, but yeah, everything I put in the game usually starts out, it's been very messy. And I feel like I'm always someone who's quite open to implementing new ideas if I feel it's going to make the game better. I mean, obviously you get to a certain point of development and then you have to put the brakes on and stop doing that, because then you're going to end up ending up in scope creep territory. But the early days of Turbo was just mainly throwing in as much shit as I can, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't work. And I've just basically just took it from there.
It's really interesting how it all sort of just kind of falls into place over time. The way you describe it, because some people really do just kind of find magic on accident, I guess. They're like, just throw everything in there that I want and then don't do a lot of thinking about how it's going to mesh together. But then like, well, let's just allow the player to kind of figure it out and see what works. But you're much more like an extreme example I could give? You're like Da Vinci, where you start off with, I'm going to paint a picture of a lady, and then you end up, all right, well, how many years has it been since you started painting that picture of that lady? And then later on, it's like, okay, well, I guess he was onto something.
Yeah, I mean, like the chainsaw leg mechanic, I literally just said, oh, what happens if I put like a damage sphere on the feet of the player? And it kind of just evolved from there.
Okay, we're back, Sam, after a very short and not whole day long break. So we left off yesterday, and I had only played the super early pre-alpha demo, and now I've only played the much newer and better version of the super early pre-alpha demo. And I just wanted to take another 30 minutes or so, and let's kind of dig into like the real gameplay here.
Sounds good.
So what immediately stands out is like just in the past. I mean, how long ago was it when you gave me the first demo? I mean, when I played it, holy shit, year?
Yeah,
has it been a year?
I think so. I can't remember which one it was.
I mean, this game has really just come so far, and I just really, really like it. So if I started out, the first thing I played was the newer level, which is the one with the docks and ships and everything. Is that the newer? Is that newer?
Yeah, that's one of the latest ones that's been put together. It's
Yeah.
near one of the ones near the beginning of the game.
Yeah. So I noticed like the demo actually skips level 1 and goes straight to 2 and 3.
Mm.
And I was curious, is that something you do often? Like you don't work linearly, you just kind of like make the levels and then see how they fit? Or
yeah, I mean, I sort of, when I start out, I just make whatever I feel like, and without any. I mean, I have a rough idea in my head where I want it to place in the game, but I would usually juggle it around quite a bit. I purposely saved the first level to last. Just the wise words of John Romero, who says you should always leave it to the end when you're best at your ability to design levels. So I've left that one till very late in the production, and I'll get back to that one. Still not sure what it is. I have had a tackle at it, at making, E1, M1, but most of the time I make a level, it just doesn't feel like a good introduction to the game. So I'll cross that bridge when I get to it, I guess. But it's most of the. I mean, when I started out, I kind of just kept making maps without any idea of where I'll place it in the game. And I have remade maps quite a bit. Like, I'd make a first iteration, wouldn't be happy with it, trash the map, but I'd pick concepts that I like from the map and I'd redesign it into newer levels, which is sort of what that one that you played, though, that was just all fresh, made up from scratch. A lot of there's another level that was in that demo, which is the same one that's in the gameplay trailer. It's actually a complete redesign of a map that I made about a year and a half ago. And if you play it, it's a very similar layout, but it's not as like the direction on where you're supposed to go isn't as cohesive as it is now, which is something a lesson I learned the very hard way. Like, I just go straight in, make maps, and I play it, and I'd know where to go. But, I watched someone else play it, and they would get lost quite easily. That was a hard lesson to learn, because a lot of work ended up getting thrown out, unfortunately, as a consequence.
I mean, the same thing happens in film and, just anything. You can't make everything in order, I would assume. That's like, did you ever watch Pokemon? Are you too old for that?
I watched the first couple of seasons of that. I think I was about 8 or 10 when it came out.
Do you remember there's an episode called, don't ask me why this one sticks out through the test of time, but there's an episode called Go West, Young Meowth, and it's about Meowth learning how to talk. And he's like a stray cat, and he goes to Hollywood, and he ends up in like a ballet studio, and a sexy, girl Meowth, is unimpressed by him because he's not sophisticated, so he decides to learn English. And
I vaguely remember that. I remember the Hollywood bit.
Yeah, that transfers into, I believe, the next episode, or like maybe late in that episode. Either way, it's on the same cassette tape that I have. And they're in Hollywood, and that episode, I believe, transfers into like there being a film director, and they're making a Pokemon movie, and that's the classic trope. Is he's like, oh no, we're doing the big finale as the very first scene that we shoot. And that's totally not uncommon. Like, most movies are not filmed in a linear sense at all. They just kind of cobble them together. In the movie The Guest, which is like my favorite movie ever, Dan Stevens, right? He is the star actor, and he, if I remember correctly, he had just come off of Downton Abbey, and in Downton Abbey he had to be kind of fat, And in this movie, he needed to be buff as fuck. And then there's this one scene where he's like shirtless, and he's got to be sexy as hell. And they were like, well, let's save that scene to the very end.
It always makes me wonder. Like, I rewatched The Matrix recently, and it makes me wonder. It's like, I actually don't know. I can't remember if they actually shaved Keanu's head for when he's outside of the Matrix, because they would have had to shoot all of the stuff before, like in the Matrix beforehand, right? Or did they use a
They
wig?
bald capped him.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I have to watch behind the scenes of that again. It's been a while.
But anyway, your game has come a long way with the enemies too. I can't really seem to find anything that's changed about the core, gameplay mechanics themselves. But you've added the shotgun that's got the alt fire of basically being a grenade launcher that like with sticky bombs.
Yeah.
And the enemies themselves that's fucking awesome. Like the really big giant dudes.
Oh yeah.
As opposed to in Doom, or like
Yeah.
they're motherfuckers. They can move. Holy shit!
I think I designed it specifically to be like the chain gunner from classic Doom. He needs a. Currently I call him Beefcake. I haven't given him a proper name yet.
I like that name. Stick with it.
Yeah. I don't know. I'll see if I can leave the community to name it. I get the community to name stuff sometimes. Like the chain gun with the flamethrower. That was named by I can't remember the name, but somebody on Twitter. Like I just put a thread out and said, name this gun, and somebody came up with Twin Incendiary, which I thought was too damn good. So yeah, it's I think because the build you played, it had a lot of the fodder enemies in there still. So you have the shotgunner, the Uzi thug, and there's that crazy guy who you said looked like what was it? The guy with the TV for the face. Yeah. So he's been in there for quite a while. I think he's one of the oldest enemies. He's been there since early 2019.
In Saga, his name is
Saga.
Prince Robot 4.
But yeah, I mean, right now I'm in the process of, so I have a lot of fodder enemies. I just want to, sort of knuckle down and get some more heavier types to try and change up the combat dynamics. Because right now it's like, it's so easy to just feel like a badass and jump around the arena and just own everything. But there isn't really anything right now in the current build that sort of challenges the player quite a bit. So that's sort of the next big thing, is to increase the enemy roster and get some more heavies in there and just try and change up the gameplay dynamic.
Yeah, I mean, it's really cool so far, because what you do is with the fodder enemies, you tend to end up in these sections where they come at you in a straight line. And like, what's the obvious thing? I'm going to break out the chainsaw leg and just do one of these. Zzz, and if I miss anybody, I just turn around and zzz, right back through them.
Yeah, those areas are pretty fun to design.
Yeah.
There are a few specific, like in the boat map, there's like a ramp that goes down, but you can't actually walk through it. The only way to get through it is to crouch and slide. So, and it's like, okay, I'll just stick an enemy at the bottom, just so when you reach the bottom, you just slide straight through them. There's also another section I'm quite happy with. It's actually in the gameplay reveal, where you take a jump pad up to an elevated platform, and it's such a narrow platform, like a long, narrow platform, and there's a bunch of those, I call them techno junkies, the guys with the TV faces. They just run straight at you, and it's like, okay, just take the chainsaw through. They're not all dead. It's like that scene from, it's called Brain Dead here in New Zealand. I think it's a different name in the States. It's a Peter Jackson movie.
I think it has the same name here.
Yeah, so it's a scene where he's like running through the horde with a lawnmower, and then he turns around and they're not all quite dead. So he's like, okay, fuck it, I guess I'll just walk back the other way and go run over them again. It's pretty fun.
It's like a very rewarding process, I would assume, because just look, the one level that I had played before is a completely different experience. If it's even the same fucking level. I mean, I could see some architectural things that are kind of still there, but it's come a long way. And you do an excellent job of, making these levels that are kind of intertwined with themselves, like where you can sort of like return, or at least cross paths that you've crossed before in order to get to places. And not just in like you got to open the doorway. There is that, but in like hey, I'm looking down and I started over there, but now I'm jumping across walls and stuff. It's very, I don't know. It feels very much like a real area in certain sections. Like this is it gives the impression that at least this is a real place.
Yeah, it's a tricky balance, especially when you're designing all your levels to look like cities. You have to make it a fun play arena, but at the same time, you can't go too over the top and make it completely abstract. Like some stuff has to make sense, but I make a few concessions. I think at the bare minimum, I will say, okay, there's this random platform up here that makes no sense. I'll stick a door, an accessible door on one side just to look like it's a real place.
Yeah. I'm not saying it's like Cyberpunk where there's a million NPCs running around living out their actual lives.
Yeah.
Slowly becoming cognizant and taking over the world. But it just does an excellent job of like making you feel like this is an environment that potentially could have at some point been used by someone. And then you have like, sections that are just like, okay, yeah, this is an arena. Cool.
Yeah.
But maybe that arena is a parking garage or a hangar or something like that.
Yeah. It's fun trying to come up with that stuff. I got a few pretty cool ones coming up. Like I want to do, obviously you got to have a nightclub with neon lights everywhere. One I'm working on right now is like a giant plaza complex, which is like a big shopping mall with lots of fancy marble architecture, which is nice because having white marble as the arena contrasts really nicely with like shitloads of gore being sprayed everywhere. So that's going to be a fun one to play.
I can't say this enough, like the feeling of sliding through 5 or 6 enemies with a chainsaw and just spattering gore everywhere.
Instant gib.
It's going to be the selling point of the game.
It's definitely one thing. It's the one thing I knew if I was going to make the shooter, I have to just make something that is like just ludicrous amounts of gore. Like, the amounts of gore that make totally no sense. So I feel like it's the
way you do it.
Yeah. It's probably one of the things I've iterated on the most since the beginning. It's just how the gore works. Like even now, I still need to go back and do another iteration. It's like, I need gore to like drip off the ceiling or have gibs like chunks of enemies like slide down the walls. I do feel like it's definitely one of the things I really need to nail with this.
It's a good challenge to my instincts because, my instinct is like you push Q to kick in the face. But you can't do that here. So we got to play with it and figure out different types of ways to move around. I mean, you have the double jump and dash mechanic and everything, which these are not things you have to like buy uploads to or whatever, at least so far.
No, you start out with those. The only thing you have to acquire is like there's like an ability where you have like missiles in your arm. And there's a few more abilities coming too, and nothing I can really talk about yet, but there are points throughout the game where you will significantly upgrade, the way you move through the game. And I think there's going to be a lot of difference between how you start out playing the game and how you move through the arenas. And by the time you reach the end, it's just going to be completely flipped on its head.
Yeah. And do you have any other kind of ideas? You mentioned nightclub, but like, what are some of the tropes that you want to kind of cover?
Well, so I got I got a lot. So it's many, city streets, nightclubs. There's one where it's just a giant tower where you can go to. So the idea is like the central hub of the level is like an elevator lobby, and each key you find is on a separate floor. So if you want to reach like the top floor, you need the red key, or if you want to reach the middle floor, you need the blue key. So it's quite, it's probably one of the biggest maps so far. It's just, the scale of how far you go from one point A to point B. There's another one where it's like rooftops. So you're jumping between buildings, which is pretty ludicrous. I can't really talk about it too much because I don't want to spoil too many surprises. But I mean, definitely anything like most of the inspirations I get for behind maps is stuff I've seen from movies like RoboCop, Terminator, Blade Runner.
The 80s.
Lots of just anything from the 80s or 90s.
You gonna slap Civvy with a sewer level?
Oh yeah.
That's how your way through shit.
Yeah, we're definitely having a sewer level. Yeah, I'm definitely putting a Civvy Easter egg in here somewhere, but if I do, it has to be in the sewer level.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be weird because like you can't really ever put the player in too many tight spaces, you know, because that's it would just kind of muddle the movement and not be very fun, I would think. But
yeah, well,
it's so common to do like sewer and train levels and things like that. I don't know.
I have done a few prototypes of sewer levels. I mean, mostly what it ends up being is just like massive chasms. So like kind of think like an underworld to the city. But they it leaves a lot of, so one of the things that keep in the back of my mind when I'm designing levels is like, try and sneak in as many ramps as I can. So the worlds feel sort of like a skate park, but in disguise. So,
Right.
Because that makes best use of the sliding mechanics. But the good thing of this, the couple of sewer levels I prototyped is there are a lot of opportunities to do a lot of slopes. But yeah, we'll see. I need to. There is definitely a sewer level planned, but I'm still not sure. I mean, it's too early to say how I'm going to tackle it.
Yeah, I mentioned the skate park thing before. There's a tremendous amount of slopes, not a lot of staircases. You know what I mean? Like everything kind of makes sense accidentally. I mean, I know it's on purpose for you, but like it's like the world was designed for this killing machine, or like maybe this killing machine was designed for the world he lives in. Sort of.
Yeah.
And
also, slopes are easier to make than stairwells as well. So, but I didn't say that.
That's not the reason. It's genius level design is what it is. Yeah. No, it's so satisfying. Everything about it. The only complaint was when I couldn't find that fucking button because it just didn't stand out enough. But I mean, that's like way later on kind of shit to worry about.
Oh yeah, that's that level's kind of been it's been rechecked quite a bit. The bit where you get the red key or the green key is supposed to be where you acquire like your ability to run across walls. So like it's still a lot of design to do. That level was retrofitted for the gameplay trailer, and then I kind of lost a lot of the original game design that was in there, so I had to go back and clean it up a bit.
Yeah. It's also quite a bit of like not insanely difficult or anything, but platforming stuff. I mean, you have the wall running, and then you have these jump pads and all that kind of thing. And what it does often is sets you up for like a weird situation where you're either on a ledge fighting enemies or you're like well above them and you got to kind of like jump down and plan your attack ahead. And that's also really cool. I very much enjoy these opportunities to kind of get an aerial view on a big group of enemies and like, all right, which ones do I want to kill first? It's never like a strategic decision either. It's just like he looks like he needs to be dead. Jump down.
Yeah, it's
take care of that guy.
It's definitely something I want to try and aim for, is to give the players the opportunity to, not all the time, but most of the time, let them see what they're about to get into. So if they do want to backtrack a bit and find more items, stock up more on health, then they have the opportunity to do that. Sadly, with the demo that I gave you, it was mostly sort of traps, but that will be changing in the future.
Yeah. Is there an overarching story at all here?
Sort of. It's not really the way it's told is it's not very in your face. It's mostly told before and after missions with short, 10, 15 second sequences. But the story is not, it's not the main thing about it. So it's kind of has. I mean, there is a story, something to tie the levels together, but it's not like a big deal in the game.
Can you divulge anything at this point?
I could a little bit. So basically, the premise is so you have a large corporation which has been selling sort of replacement body parts to people who live on this planet. So people live in a city called Neo Paradise, which is it's not on Earth. It's another planet. But most of the people that live there, it's like a crime-ridden city straight out of RoboCop. And then you have this big technology company who's been selling these augmentations to the people who live there. But then what happens one day is this, nasty virus takes over, and eventually everybody starts becoming the single hive mind, which is hell-bent on just rapid expansion. Basically, you play in Turbo as a contractor who's been sent to clean up the mess for the corporation. But it sort of starts to get a bit out of control because it turns out you're not the only contractor who's been sent there. There are other people who are also trying to claim this bounty. So there's a few sections where, you may have a bit of interaction between other bounty hunters, and it kind of escalates from there. I won't go into it too much because there's still a few details that we're working out here before we have the full final story. I mean, it's a similar situation to Total Chaos, actually. The story for that didn't get put in until the last month of the time I was working on it. So, yeah, I don't want to say too much because I do think it's still a bit that might change with the story.
Yeah, I know you got a big date to go on, so I don't want to keep you forever. But yeah, just thanks for all the time and working with me on the scheduling stuff. Because people who don't know, New Zealand and Arizona are completely different time zones. It's not even the same day. So,
hello from the future.
Yes, and greetings from the past.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to do another one of these. Hopefully, further into the production. We'll definitely have a lot more to talk about soon.
Hit me up anytime when you're ready. Like especially when the public stuff starts to hit. That's when we want to promote the hell out of it. So.
Yeah, well, so there was that big push last month, but I think there's another big push of more juicy content coming out very soon. Still no date on the demo. I can't say anything about a demo at this stage, but all I can say is we will see.
Of course, we got to say thank you to Sam Wadaholic Prebble for coming on the show again. It's awesome. Love getting the chance to kind of get this little bit of an early insider scoop, if you will, on Turbo Overkill. It's going to change the whole fucking world of boomer shooters. I'm so stoked for this game. I've been so excited about it for so long, and I am just absolutely happy to finally be able to talk about it. So with that said, the music this week is by Gribblesnap. I hope I'm saying his name right. Gribblesnap, who is the composer of the soundtrack to Turbo Overkill. So if you like this, there's plenty more to come later on. Of course, we got to say thank you to our wonderful supporters. So, Paul, Moose, Dots, Alexander, Brad, Red Eyes, Anthony, Robert, Jack, Brandy, Fred, Lord Revan, Tones, Igrad, Simon, and Morpher, Mike Zan, Bridge, Ben, Donkey, Shannon, and the Flam Fam. All amazing people. If you want to be as cool as those people, head on over to inthekeep.com/support. Look for the many ways that you can do so. We got Patreon. We got early episodes for the people who use that. We got exclusive t-shirts that have been mailed out to our wonderful supporters. And we have other merch that you can buy right now on our merch tab. So those are all things you can do if you want to. If not, whatever. Hang in here. Stay for the wonderful conversations. We just want you to listen to the show. That's what I really care about, to be honest with you. And learn about awesome games like Turbo Overkill. Realms Deep 2021 is right around the corner. And it's going to be fucking badass. But for now, relax. I love you. The Drowned God Cathala loves you. And until next time, stay in the keep.